determine an equation of the inverse. So here the method to finding an equation. First, switch x and y, and then secondly, solve for y. So if we want to determine an equation, we would switch x and y, which would give us x equals negative y squared plus 4. And then you have to see if you can get y by itself. So what you might do here is you might move, maybe you move the 4 over. How would you get rid of the negative in front? Multiply both sides by a negative. And when you square root both sides, you have to remember the plus or minus. Plus or minus the square root of negative x plus 4. Sketch the graphs of negative x squared plus 4 and the inverse. So, using transformations, can you see that you have a parabola flipped over vertically and then moved up 4 units? So you would have 0, 4, over 1 down 1, over 1 down 2. There's your parabola for this blue one, negative x squared plus 4. Now for the inverse. And the inverse, I'm going to graph in green. If you have your original graph, it's really easy to graph your inverse. Okay? If you think about it, you're going to be flipping over this line, y equals x, which means what's going to happen to 0, 4? It's going to become 4, 0. Here I have on my blue graph 2, 0. So I'm going to have 0, 2. Here I have negative 2, 0. Zero, negative 2. This point would have to stay the same. This point would have to stay the same. Woo. Just make it big enough so it goes through. And there's the graph of the inverse. I think it's easy to graph the inverse if you have the original graph. Okay? You could have also used this equation to graph it, but your chances of making a mistake are bigger. For example, this equation is actually 2 different equations. One with the positive, negative, and I'm going to factor out the negative because it's got a horizontal reflection and horizontal translation. And the other one would be with the negative sign out in front. Wow, that bracket is not. Negative x minus 4. Okay, for this one, can you see that you have a square root graph with a horizontal reflection? And then move 4 to the right. This one, with the dots underneath, matches up with this one with the dots on top. And this one, with the yellow dots underneath, would have vertical reflection and horizontal reflection, then moved 4 to the right. Can you see that square root graph matching up? And it's kind of neat because inverses and functions undo each other. What's the opposite of squaring? Square rooting. Have you ever thought of the square root graph as being the same shape as a parabola? Did you notice it goes over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3? I mean, over 1, across 1, up 1, across 3, instead of the other. And if you had both parts, it would make a sideways parabola. Okay? Is the inverse a function? Part C? No. It doesn't pass the vertical line test. Questions 5 and 6 for example 2.